inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
I think a new world order is emerging.
An inside job? How dare you? How dare you?
To create, so to say, mass-produced models of human beings arranged in some kind of a scientific caste system.
We shall go on to the end. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall never surrender.
Good day, everybody. It's the 16th of November, 2016. 7 p.m. in the Netherlands, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is UCY.tv with the Solvinur Event. I am your host, Solvinur. It's the name I use on the internet. You can go to UCY.tv, check out the website, and also find a chat link there. Some people have already arrived. CT, Del, Jane, Joe, Jules, Meticlus, Shirley, you just, and two Anons. Welcome everybody. How you doing? What's up with you guys? Any news you want to mention? Did you buy a new house? Did you get a new car? Whatever. Did you find something, some interesting information? Let me know. Did you get a new job like road? I think it was. That was good news, right? Same for me, by the way. I'm still in the testing period, but my new job is better than the old job, which is why I'm now on Wednesdays instead of Saturdays. So, just to let you know what I've been doing, been reviewing some of the Terence McKenna stuff, and I'm still not convinced, so to speak, of his whole way of thinking. I find contradictions in his talks. And he mentions it sometimes itself, and he says, well, who cares, or something like that. Or contradictions are bound to arise when talking about these kinds of things, something like that. And I mentioned that also. When you talk about what I would call the unseen, or that which cannot be spoken about. When you try to speak about those things, you're bound to run into contradictions. The first thing that comes to my mind as clearly contradictory is Asintya Beta Beta Tattva, which is a study of how things are and are not the same with quote-unquote God, or the absolute truth. And so that's contradictory. You can't be and be not at the same time. But that's the kind of explanations you get when you try to speak about the unspeakable, the unseen. And, well, maybe we'll get into reasons for assuming or believing why there is such a thing as the unseen or that which cannot be spoken about. Right? So this podcast should be called Upanishads Continued or something, I don't know. Howdy Grimner, Joe, welcome. Welcome, you can call in 718-717-8296, 718-717-8296. So but the one thing that I did take away from Terence is a better understanding, well, yeah, I guess so, a better understanding of teleology. And I told you guys to look into this before, remember? Teleology comes from the word telos. And there's another word that seems to tie to this, it's eschatology. I think both are referring to an unnameable thing at the end of time. There's a different way of looking at time. This I also got from Terence. And yeah, I don't know if I can agree with him because I've had my own experiences with the I Ching, but he claims that it's another way of looking at time, so to speak. And I guess that's possible, you know. It is a divination system with 64 hexagrams. Each hexagram is made up of 6 lines, which are actually 2 and 3. You get an upper part and a lower part. And there's all kinds of distinguishing marks about it. But that the notion of time that we get shoved down our throat from society today is that it's linear, and we've talked about this before, that time can also be seen as circular. The Earth goes around the Sun, that's a circle, right? They call that a year. I'm not sure if solar-based is the right idea. There's also lunar-based calendars. This whole calendar thing is also heavily involved in the structure of our culture, right? So time. And this teleology and time is tied together in the sense that if you understand a little bit about teleology, you will know that not only is there a, let's call it an evolutionary force, or maybe better put in Rupert's words, morphogenetic fields and resonances that make things that are now easier to replicate, which is shown in chemical studies. It's a kind of conservation process of habit, as Rupert says. But if you had only that, then how do you account for all the varieties that arise in nature, not only in the different kinds of animals, but also in the different kinds of birds, for instance? There are so many of them. Different kinds of grasses, of mice, of so much variation. Is hard to imagine if you only use morphogenetic fields and resonances, right? So this idea of time and telos comes in. And it's the idea that there is some kind of an attractor. And this attractor comes back in our study of Upanishads. Because a lot of stories in the Vedas are about Krishna. How he was born in a jail, and how he escaped, and his brother Rama escaped as a flame after birth. And this Krishna is black, by the way. Totally black. Not blue, as you will usually see him depicted. Krishna means black. But also, it means ultimate attractor, I should say, I guess. Translating that from Dutch, by the way. Yeah, I guess the ultimate attractor would be it. So that ties to the idea of telos. And it's of course possible that this idea of telos came from religion. Right? It's quite possible that first there was a conception of the idea of God, and then the idea was, okay, well, what does God do? Well, it attracts. And it attracts, I don't know what it attracts, but if you look at how the universe has manifested itself, then it's really strange. The level of complexity that we have now is so far removed from what they had 300 years ago or 500 years ago. And then if you look at what people had those days, it's not comparable what people had to 10,000 years ago, see? And so there's complexity arising not only in culture, but also in molecules and how they tie together, and other fields. Hold on, guys. Let me let my cigarette take a drink. So when you look at nature and you ask yourself what's going on, it's pretty hard to tell. I ask myself that question as a philosopher also. You know, even before I started doing research on the internet. What's life doing? And I don't know. It's an interesting question. I think that we as humans are some kind of step to a next evolution of some sort. Because I got a hard time believing that the brain capacity that humans had has doubled over the last 1.5 million years. That is, according to biologists, the most dramatic change seen in biology. That growth of the brain, it doubles in size in such a short period of time, evolutionary speaking. Right? I think that life is responsible for that. Right? Life is using the universe as some kind of marbles to play with. And so it doubles the brain size of this monkey. This monkey then seems to be, although I'm not quite sure about that, our ancestors, right? Because we have this brain capacity. And then we go on out of the world, putting people on the moon, if you want to believe that. We create electricity, which is, or create, I don't know if we create it, Terence calls it coax it out of nature. We coaxed electricity out of nature, which you can actually do at home. He told me about these magnets that you need, nails and some barbed wire, and you put a barbed wire around the nails and position them in such a way with these magnets, and you're generating electricity. In other words, you're coaxing it out of nature. I thought that was a good one. So all these new things, all this complexity, that seems one of the ways in which life seems to play with nature, so to speak. Yeah. All right, let's see. Jane MC says, I know, Jane, with this whole business. I can go into it if you like, or you can call in 718-717-8296. Jon Irvin of Gnostic Media, who I think is a good host, filled a Freedom of Information Act request on Terence McKenna if he was with the CIA. The response came back that it's classified information and that our present processing included a search for records that would reveal an openly acknowledged agency affiliation, and stated that I must file an appeal for further information. An appeal was later filed and is currently pending. Alright, I think that's old news, Jane. The last news I heard about that is that the CIA will not deny nor confirm that Terence ever worked for the CIA. So, and the rest, surely, please do call in. That's too much for me to read. Yep. All right. So, but there is a connection, I think, between these. I guess they are older views. This teleological view is an older view. I think there is a connection between that and the Vedas, the stuff that we supposedly will be reading today. And there's I found a website which doesn't have a copyright label on it. If you want, we can do the purport from Srimad Bhagavatam, but I'm telling you, it's tough stuff, and I'm going to constantly have to interrupt here and there because it's pretty dogmatic. Or we can go here at where we were, the 11th Kanda of this Upanishad, which doesn't, it's not according to my, I don't like it so far. There's lots of this stuff, so if you have a preference, it's Upanishads or Srimad Bhagavatam that we could start reading from. Here's also a website which is totally off topic, but I'm going to put it in the chat anyway, because it worked for me. So I thought that was worth noting. Actually, some good information and solving problems with your computer, you know. So I took, I think, 3 of their 4 steps, because I think one of their steps I couldn't do for some reason, don't remember exactly. And it did make my computer faster. And I mean noticeably. I can do things now that I couldn't do before. So, I'm going to put that in the chat for you. If your computer is really slow, there are some admin, what do you call it in English? In Dutch it's a prompt, I don't know. Some commands, some administrator commands that you can use to disable some of the bugs that Windows 10 has, and it's really draining on your hard drive. And that's what I noticed. My hard drive was constantly at 100% for no fracking reason at all, right? It didn't show up in the window that you get from pressing Control-Alt-Delete, right? And it says there that in that window that your hard drive is at 100%, but it's like using 0.2 megabytes, right, per second, and that's nothing, you know. And then for some reason, after 5 minutes or so, it starts dropping, and then you see disk usage 0%, which is what it should be at 0.0 or 0.2 megabytes per second at the top one. Alright. Like now it's 0%, and that's how it should be. And so I disabled some of the Windows stuff in this prompt thingy, and ta-da! I didn't even have to restart my computer. There is some information on that page on how you can permanently shut off those things, even if you don't restart. Even if you restart, I mean, not if you don't. So there you go. Totally off topic, but... Alright, check out the website, freedomsnetwork.com. It's social media stuff over there. You can check out. I'm also there as Solvinur. I got an invite from somebody who wants to be my friend, and I was like, okay, who are you? And I look at this page, and all his page was full of accepted friend requests. And I don't know this guy, you know, who the hell is he? He just sent friend requests to everybody. And most of the people say, okay, hi, I'm your friend. And I'm like, okay, wow, no, who the hell are you, you know? Yeah. Alright, so freedomsnetwork.com and reallibertymedia.com. You can also check that out. There's a nice, at the top, you can find a lot of radio stations, among which UCY. So also check that out, ucy.tv. There will be no ads during this hour, so if you can spare a dime, go to ucy.tv and see what you can do with a little donate button at the bottom of the front page. Alright. Let's see, clickety click. Back to the chat. There we are. Light my cigarette now. Alright, so yeah, I've done enough of the introductions in the previous episodes of this Upanishads, but we'll get back to those topics because they really are the basis for understanding these Upanishads. And this one is a bit different than what I expected, to be honest with you, so far anyway. This last time we left off, and it seemed to be all about the sun. This is the 11th Kanda. And if you do have questions, you can just type them in the chat room. I keep an eye on that. This is the first one from 11th Kanda. When from thence he has risen upwards, he neither rises nor sets. He is alone, standing in the center. And on this there is this verse. Yonder he neither rises nor sets at any time. If this is not true, ye gods, may I lose Brahman. Alright, so all I can think of now is that there is a position on earth. There should be a position on earth on which the sun doesn't rise or set. And the only place that happens is during the summertime in the North Pole and the South Pole, because of the tilt of the axis, 23 degrees point something, I think 23.25, I think. It's the half of the year, the sun is just circling around the horizon, it seems. No, not half of the year. Maybe like a month or so, or 3 weeks. I'm not sure. 3 is next. And indeed, to him who thus knows this, Brahma Upanishad, the secret doctrine of the Veda, the sun does not rise and does not set. For him there is day once and for all. Right, so that's strange. 4. This doctrine, beginning with 3,1,1, Brahman told Prajapati, Prajapati told it to Manu, Manu told it to his offspring, Ikshvaku, etc., and the father told that doctrine of Brahman to Udalaka Aruni. This is what they call a parampara. It's a line of oral tradition. 5. A father may therefore tell that doctrine of Brahman to his eldest son, or to a worthy pupil, but no one should tell it to anybody else, even if he gave him the whole sea-girt earth full of treasure, for this doctrine is worth more than that. Yea, it is worth more. Next. The Gayatri verse is everything whatsoever here exists. Gayatri indeed is speech, for speech sings forth, Gayati, and protects, Treya, te, everything that here exists. Now, here they're mixing up speech and existence, or that which exists. Keep in mind that in my line of thinking, there is no difference between that which exists and reality. Other people may, have different definitions on this point. The point I want to make here is that this is known in more religious texts, right? It's the spoken word becoming flesh in some verse from Johannes, I believe, and it's also in the Genesis, where sound is used to create things. And now we know that sound has a effect on matter in the sense that it shapes forms somehow. You can see that with vibrating plates and sand, for instance. you could also tie a violin to that plate and make it make appear all different kinds of shapes. All right, so it's no stretch to imagine this in 3D. Right? There's something about this idea that speech creates for some reason. I mean, and now I'm going totally to a whole different field. When you say speech creates, in law, for instance, what these idiots in the political capitals do, they speak into existence these laws and they have an effect on reality, you see. So that's on a gross material level that speech creates. I don't think that's what they meant in the Bible, or I don't think that's what they mean here in this verse. The Gayatri verse is everything whatsoever here exists. This clearly implies that sound or speaking is entwined, tied to, connected to everything that exists. The stories that I read, for instance, from the exile that the 5 pandas were put into because the leader of the brothers, whose name slips me at this point, lost it all in a botched game of dice, and they were forced to go into exile for 13 years, if I remember. I think they were even using a moon calendar for that, but I'm not quite sure. And so they fled to the mountains at some point, and this was a good opportunity, thought Arjuna, to go and fetch a weapon from Shiva. Because, in those days, the gods lived on earth, and Shiva was living in a mountain somewhere in the Himalayas. So Indra goes and leaves his brothers behind and promises he will be back with a weapon. And so he goes into the mountain and he's walking and he's hungry and he sees a boar and he shoots it with his arrow. He walks up to the boar and he tries to pick it up, and an old man appears and says, "Hey, what you doing? That's my boar." And Arjuna is all surprised and thinks, "Oh, well, this is an old man. I just shot this boar. I'm hungry. I'm going to eat this." He says, "No, this is my arrow. I shot it. I'm going to eat it." And this old man starts laughing and he says, "Do you think that's your arrow? No, you're mistaken. You missed." And Arjuna says, "I don't miss. He was the best bow that there was at the time." And so the old man says, "No, you're not going to take that boar. I'm going to go and grab that boar." And Arjuna says, "Try." And so the old man starts moving toward, and Arjuna starts shooting arrows at this old man. And the old man clips these arrows between his teeth and spits them on the floor. And Arjuna shoots another arrow and he just simply lets it pass by. He can't hit the old man, and he's like, "Whoa, something's up here, And suddenly he realizes that he's standing in front of Shiva. And so he gets on his knees and he tells the story that he came to get a weapon. And Shiva is all pleased with him, and he gives him this weapon. But what does he do? I think he wrote it on a leaf, but he could also have whispered it in his ear. I'm not quite sure. There's a difference between the two, I think. There's more of these kinds of stories, but So he whispers in his ear this mantra. And he tells Arjuna that if he uses this mantra, it will be the end of the war. So be very careful when using it, he says. And according to the story, this mantra unleashes a Mahabrastra, as it's called. And if you would ask some of the people that translate or try to translate this stuff, they will say, well, that's a nuclear weapon. And the way to unleash this weapon was to touch water first with your hands, then say this mantra. Right? So here again is this idea that speech creates. That's also from Terence. In itself, and I think I must agree with him there also, in itself, language is a phenomena unheard of on this earth. The closest relatives we have in that case are the octopi. They speak with their skin. And they show how they feel with their skin. If they're hungry, or if they want sex, or whatever. But that's a kind of crude form of language. You know, our language, so first of all, we got a lot of them. There's Russian, there's French, there's Spanish, you know, but language itself is a phenomena that has been coaxed out of us. Remember how I spoke about electricity being coaxed out of nature? And so language is something that has been coaxed out of us. I think that's what life is doing. I think that's what's going on. And so to be able to say what's coming next, I have no clue. It would be, I think, maybe unimaginable. All right. So there is something about speech and reality, and also, you know, when we need to see this in the most broadest possible way. And also look at nature more in the sense that, for instance, the animal world. Do you think these animals, like a tiger in the woods somewhere, has an idea of what reality is? Huh? Or asked in a different way, is reality only based on the human idea? Is it only humans that think that there is such a thing as reality, and that for some reason it has to be stable? I'm of that kind of view. This is the objectivist kind of view, that there is reality out there. It was there before I was born, right? There's the other view, and it says that, well, there was consciousness first. And then reality starts taking shape around you. If you go back, look at what happens when you are a child, at first you don't see much, right? But gradually you will start noticing different shapes because of the borders. Right? Our eyes are specifically made to distinguish between borders. And so you could argue that reality shapes itself for your specific consciousness. And that may be where the idea may come from, well, everybody lives in a different reality somehow. I don't agree with that, by the way. Like I said, I'm an objectivist. I think we all live in the same reality. You may experience this reality different, like everybody reacts differently to what happened on the events of September 11th, 2001. I mean, just look at me and compare me to the rest of the people here in the Netherlands. They don't fracking care. But those towers came down for both me and the rest of the people here in the Netherlands. You see? So they may experience reality different, but it's the same reality. They may have a different perception, I suppose, but that doesn't change the fact that it's the same reality. And so this kind of stuff is hard to talk about, because in these ancient philosophies from India, reality is taken into account, but it's presented in a different way, in many different ways, by the way. There's no thing in the Veda that says, well, this is the way and this is the only way. Those are only the dogmatic sects that spring off of it, right? They give you many ways on which you can look at what's called reality. Most springing out to me was that there is an impersonal and a personal view. Yeah, there's people that believe, even in India, that all of these gods, Indra, Chandra, Brahma, Vishnu, you name it, that they are representations of aspects of nature and not per se persons. But most of the people do, just like Christians. Most of the people believe that there is a personal God. Look at the paintings that are available, you see. So the Vedas, they give you many different points of view, and they don't say that it's one way or the other. Maybe it's both. It's like this ancient saying that we got, as above, so below. But is it also as below, so above? Because things build on complexity. When nature started, it was pretty monogamous, and bit by bit, building on the simplest building blocks to begin with, nature became more and more complex. Right? So there's different ways of looking at this, and in the Vedas, some say all. I don't know all because I haven't read all, but I would say that most fields of even scientific endeavors are mentioned in there somewhere, in some Veda, because there's many of them. It's very extensive, and I don't buy, by the way, the Aryan Indo origins of this, by the way. Many people will say, well, this stuff is 3,000 years old. No, I don't think so. I think it's much older than that. I think that the Indian culture was much more advanced 4,000 years ago than we dare to imagine. All right. 2, moving back to verses. That Gayatri is also the earth, for everything that here exists rests on the earth and does not go beyond. Yeah, that's not true. We just sent Voyager 1 away a long time ago. Technology makes this happen. That includes everything that here exists. 3. That earth again is the body in man, for in it the vital airs, pranas, which are everything, rests and do not go beyond. Four. The body again in man is the heart within man, for in it the pranas rest and do not go beyond. Prana is like connected to life, connected to breath. 5. The Gayatri has 4 feet and is sixfold. And this is also declared by Rig verse in Rig Veda 10:90-30. That was Dutch. In Rig Veda 10:93. 6. Such is the greatness of it, of Brahman, under the disguise of Gayatri. Greater than it is the person, Purusha. His feet are all things. The immortal with 3 feet is in heaven, i.e. himself. 3 feet, right? That's odd. I'm not quite sure what to do with this. The only thing I could comment on this last one is Brahman, who is here the creator of the universe. It says greater than it is the person, Purusha, and Purusha means controller. Seven. The Brahman, which has been thus described as immortal with 3 feet in heaven, is the same as the ether which is around us. And the ether which is around us is the same as the ether which is within us. And the ether which is within us, that is the ether within the heart. That ether in the heart, as Brahman, is omnipresent and unchanging. He who knows this obtains omnipresence and unchangeable happiness. Look, this is what I'm talking about when I'm saying this is scientific stuff. You know, it's not so long ago that we here in the West found this term to be used when speaking about electromagnetic radio waves, which go right through your body, you see. It's all pervasive. There's all kinds of footnotes here, but moving on to 13. 1. For that heart there are 5 gates belonging to the devas, the senses. Your 5 senses are seen as gates. And remember that smell and taste are seen as one sometimes. The eastern gate is the prana, the upbreathing, that is the eye, that is the aditya, that's the sun. Let a man meditate on that as brightness, glory of countenance and health. He who knows this becomes bright and healthy. Yeah, this one seems like a bit like repetition of one we had before. The sun equals health. We talked about that. 2. The southern gate is the Vijnana, back breathing, that is the ear, that is the moon. Let a man meditate on that as happiness and fame. He who knows this becomes happy and famous. 3. The western gate is the apana, down breathing. So there's back breathing and down breathing. And up breathing. That is, down breathing is speech. That is Agni, fire. Let a man meditate on that as glory of countenance and health. He who knows this becomes glorious and healthy. Here again the speech being used, this term, and being tied to Agni, where you get the word ignite from, which is a creative action, right? 4. The northern gate is the samana, on breathing, that is mind, that is the parganya, rain. Let a man meditate on that as celebrity and beauty. Oh, pala pala. Cheeky day. There. I guess I'm over my cold by now, but He who knows this becomes celebrated and beautiful. 5. The upper gate is the udana, out breathing. That is air, that is ether. Let a man meditate on that as strength and greatness. He who knows this becomes strong and great. There are 5 men of Brahman, the doorkeepers of the Svarga world. That's heaven. He who knows these 5 men of Brahman, the doorkeepers of the Svarga world, in his family a strong son is born. He who thus knows these 5 men of Brahman as the doorkeepers of the Svarga world enters himself the Svarga world. Yeah. These 5 men, I'm thinking these are 5 senses. But maybe I'm mistaken. Now that light which shines above this heaven, higher than all, higher than everything, in the highest world, beyond which there are no other worlds, that is the same light which is within man, and of this we have visible proof. Namely, when we thus perceive by touch the warmth here in the body, and of it we have this audible proof. Namely, when we thus, after stopping the ears, listen to what is like the rolling of a carriage and the bellowing of an ox, or the sound of a burning fire within the ears. Let a man meditate on this as the Brahman, which is seen and heard. Right, so 7 was strange, right? Let's see what we can do with that. What sounds like superstition, Road? 7. Now that light which shines above this heaven, say beyond the stars, maybe even beyond if there are the edges of our universe, higher than all, higher than everything in the highest world, beyond which there are no other worlds. I have no idea what to do with that, guys. Because in the first part of this sentence, we're already higher than all, right? And higher than everything. So the sentence continues after like 3 commas, and then in the highest world. Are we now to assume that we're still talking about the same thing, or are we supposed to think that there is a different kind of world, a different kind of energy, beyond which there are no other worlds. I don't know. Anyway, it continues with another comma. That is the same light which is within man. And of this we have visible proof. Well, yeah, actually the Japanese did prove that light emits from your body, but not quite sure what they mean here. Ah, yes, Rode, that gods and stuff that rule the universe. No, I don't think so. I'm more, leaning to the idea of some of the older Indian philosophies that view these personal gods as aspects of nature. Right, so that seems like a much better idea. I don't think we should throw all these mythologies out of the window, because that, I think we would be throwing away a lot of memory that we have still from old days, prehistoric memory. So, these mythologies are sources of information, I think so. You gotta, learn to read it, I guess. There's footnotes, so next. 14th Kanda. All this is Brahman. And then it says N, brackets open, N dot, brackets closed. Well, what's going on here? Do they mean that it's a noun? All this is Brahman. Let a man meditate on that visible word as beginning, ending, and breathing in it. The Brahman. It sounds like a field. See? Now, man, no, they are not science road. Absolutely not. But I would say they are at the base of science. These are these stories are a way in which those people in those times tried to explain the nature, how nature was behaving around them. When a volcano exploded, for instance, they try to explain it in their way, and that is kind of scientific, right? It's the basis of science to try to explain things. And by the way, I don't like science today. I mean, it's so Cartesian that it's too focused on one thing only. See? All right. Blah, blah. It's 58, so my bumper should be kicking in soon. Before that happens, I would like to thank everybody for listening. I'll be back next week. I hope you will be also, because I really like it when you guys come up, show up, listen. Wow, fantastic. CT, thanks. Dell, Grammy Mary, Grimner, Jane, Jules, Matty Clues, Road, Surely You Jest, and Tuanons. Thanks a lot for listening, everybody. I'll be back next week. We'll be continuing this stuff because now it seems to be getting more interesting.
In a free and open society, and we are as a people, inherently and historically.
So that's it for me, guys. Thanks a lot for listening. I'll see you next week. Take care.
I think a new world order is emerging.
An inside job? How dare you? How dare you?
To create, so to say, mass-produced models of human beings arranged in some kind of a scientific caste system.
We shall go on to the end.